Hello, Lewy Warriors. This is Joe with another episode of CLBDI Talks. And today I'm joined by a registered nurse and a member of our advisory board, Natalia Busch, who works at Sunnyside Home in Kitchener. Natalia, thank you for being here. How are you today?
I'm good, Joe. How's it going with you?
It is pretty good. I thought we would have a little conversation. I could ask you some questions about Sunnyside, long-term care homes, and what you do. You ready for that?
Perfect. Yes, let's go.
All right. So first and foremost, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Okay, so yeah, my name is Natalia Busch. I am a registered nurse and I work as the team leader at Sunnyside Home. I've been at Sunnyside Home for about 10 years now, and I've been a nurse for about 20. And my specialties is more palliative care and gerontology, and I work with residents living with dementia. I'm in charge of two home areas at Sunnyside Home, and all my residents have a type of dementia. I have about 49 residents, give or take the day, and it's a busy place, but it's a wonderful place to work.
Well, thank you for that. And going from there, let's get into talking a little bit about Sunnyside. So, speaking of Sunnyside Home, could you share a little bit about Sunnyside Home and what you love about working there?
Yeah, so Sunnyside Home is a long-term care facility in Kitchener. The wonderful thing about it is that it is run by the region of Waterloo. So we have a lot more supports. It's non-for-profit. We are supported by the Sunnyside Home Foundation. So they do a lot of kind of fundraising. So we have extra funding for a palliative chaplain, a lot of equipment. So we do have extra support and extra staff because of it. And working for the region, it's wonderful because they love innovation. They love trying new things, always kind of being on the cutting edge. It's never, where they say, "Oh, we do it this way because that's the way it's always been done." That doesn't fly in the region. So it's really, really good to work there because you can bring up ideas and anything and try different things, and you're well supported. So it's a wonderful place to work and to live.
Well, that's fantastic to hear. And we will get to some of those new ideas I know you want to talk to. But first, what are some of the challenges of working at a place like Sunnyside, and how do you and your team overcome them?
Yeah. So being in long-term care, we have, I've been there a long time. I've seen a lot of changes. Back in the day, we were taking residents more kind of straight from home. So they were fairly early in their dementia. So we had residents living with us for, we had somebody there, I think almost for 10 years. Um, and people were kind of just progressing in their dementia at Sunnyside. So we got to know them really well. More recently, with the amount of people in the community that have dementia and need long-term care, we have quite the waiting list. So right now, most of our admissions are people in crisis or that have been at home receiving services for a lot longer. So the residents that are coming into long-term care are more complex, more frail, very advanced in their dementia. And unfortunately, it's mostly crisis. So it's when the families have done everything they could at home and they're just, something happens and just that just triggers it to that they end up in hospital and needing a lot more help. So it's been a big change over the years, but we're adapting. But yeah, it has been a big change in levels of care that we have to provide, and the amount of families that come just completely overwhelmed and just at the edge of everything. It's been a huge change. So that's why we've had to change kind of the way we do things and how we approach and support these residents and these families. So it's been a lot of work. And then the pandemic hit and we're still there 24/7. We didn't have any time off. So adapting like every week was like something new. It's like, oh, right now we're gonna do this, and now we're gonna have caregivers, and now we're gonna have vaccines, and it has been crazy.
I can
And through
imagine.
all
Yeah, I
through
can
all that,
imagine.
yeah. But we got through it. We did really well considering people were really worried about our residents being kind of isolated and things. But like we were still at work 24/7. So some of our residents didn't notice a big change. So that was kind of a pat in the back because we managed to get through it pretty well, actually.
And thank you from I'm sure all of the listeners that are uh, reminiscing on the darker times of the pandemic. Thank you for all you and your coworkers did. I'm sure it was not easy, especially having to be in a position of caretaking and dealing with the pandemic, it being a whole medical thing. Must have
Mhm,
been crazy. But I just wanted to pivot. This isn't a question that we prepared, but you said something, and it was something that we had talked about in an advisory board meeting, actually, about these waiting lists. And you had said, and other members of the advisory board had said, maybe we should make a point in saying to our listeners, you don't always want to think about long term care or the possibility of long term care, but would you say that due to the kind of growing number of people with dementia and these waiting lists, it's important to consider and start planning early?
yes, definitely. Some people see long-term care as I failed as a caregiver and I it's like giving up. And it's really hard for people to make that decision that, yeah, long-term care, we have to do it. There's no other option. Um, and it's not a negative thing. It's not giving up. It's actually just finding another support system. So living with someone with dementia, these caregivers are just completely overwhelmed. They take over being the mother, the nurse, the doctor, the therapist. You take on all these roles and you kind of lose that relationship you had. And it's not easy. It's not easy taking care of somebody with dementia, and you do not have to do it alone. And so that's where we're there. So when we have a new admission, I always give a hug to the family because they're always like completely overwhelmed with the process. And it's like, I don't know what to do. It's so overwhelming. And you're just like, okay, slow down. You come here, I give you a hug. You're here now. We're going to help you. So we are going to take over the medical part. We're going to take over the little trivial things, what to eat, when to sleep, all that. Take over that, and you can go back to being just the family member. And so we do embrace our families because they're just the process they go through just to find a long-term care is like crazy. So yeah, so start touring places. That's what we recommend. Start seeing what's out there. Educate yourself on the options out there. Don't wait for the crisis, because that's you can't make a decision when the world is falling around you. So start looking ahead. It's not negative. It's a wonderful place to live. There's so many options out there. Something will work for you. I have had family members that have moved across the street and they just come to visit whenever they want. They participate in all the activities and our parties and they come for meals with us. And so it's finding a community that works for you. So it is, I know, a long process, but it's totally worth it to get ahead of it for
Exactly.
sure.
And I like the fact that you said, we don't want to wait until you're in crisis.
Mhm.
I liken it to in my life being a slightly neurotic person that I like to consider all eventualities. And it's not meant in a negative way. It's just to prepare,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes.
to know what's out there, to know what's available, and to understand it and to get a better grasp of it for if that if that eventuality happens, or when that eventuality happens, you have a firmer footing and foundation and stability. So,
Mhm.
I think it's so important that we say that to the people that are listening, and kind of make a point of that. If you are in that situation and you're thinking not now, maybe start doing a bit of research and
Mhm.
preparing yourself because you don't want to be making that decision in a crisis. So recently, Sunnyside has adopted the butterfly approach of caregiving. Could you tell our listeners what is the butterfly approach and how is it changing and updating long term caring?
Yeah, so it's a different model. The butterfly model comes from England. They've been adopting it. I mean, they've been doing it for over 20, 25 years, and it has been wonderful there. And so it finally made it over to Canada. In Alberta, they're using it quite a bit. They've had a lot of homes and a lot of successes in Alberta. In Ontario, it didn't come until Peel Region decided to, try it. And so they were the first to kind of try it out, and it went fabulously. Like, it was just night and day how great it was. So, of course, the region found out, and they're like, "Oh, we need to do that too." Thankfully, I was able to kind of get from the beginning. So that was before the pandemic. We started getting education and looking into it, and we actually launched January of 2020. So we were like ready to go, and then the pandemic hit. So we had to kind of postpone it a bit and adapt. So we adapted it kind of to what we could, and it's been great. So it's you have to be there to feel it. You walk in and it feels like home, and that's the whole point. Um, so one of the training exercises is you start comparing what long-term care, how it feels in comparison to a prison and other like hotels and other things and hospitals. And so long-term care it's always been like the schedule. So you eat at 8, so you have to be up by 7:30. Then you get toileted, then you have snack, then you have lunch at this time, and you have no control over anything. So you're like told when to get up, told when to go to bed, told when to eat. It's a lot like a prison. So it's really institutional. It's really horrible. And so that's not what you do at home. If you're living at home, if you want a snack at midnight, well, go for it. Go to the fridge, get a snack. If you want to sleep in one day, sleep till 10, that's fine. Have breakfast at 11:30. It should be flexible. And so that's what we did. And it's such a simple concept of get rid of schedules, be flexible, and be person-centered. So whatever the resident wants to do, we do it. If they want to have a whiskey before supper, go for it. Why not? If you want to have ice cream for every meal, well, why not? So getting away from controlling care. And so we've always had that notion that, it's for the better. You're diabetic, you should not have the cake. So you don't get a cake, you get a piece like an orange or something boring like that. And then they get upset because I want the cake that he's having. And so you get that's when you get behaviors, and then you get labeled as difficult, and you get antipsychotics and all these things. Well, just give them the cake. Maybe, you know, give them a little more water, and then maybe we'll go for an exercise later. But give them the cake. Why not? I mean, if they're in their 90s, like really, they can do whatever they want. They've lived their life. Don't control them. So it's getting away from that mentality of I have to protect you from all these things, and I have to tie you to a chair, and I have to like prevent you from doing things because you there is a chance you might get hurt. So being flexible, and you know what? If they want to go out and, you know, sweep the yard, go for it. If they want to go outside in the snow, we'll get you a hat and some gloves. Um, Whatever you want. And because that's what you would do at home. So it's a change of mentality. We've made the place more colorful. There's lots of things to do. There's folding. Some babies, some pets. They're all fake, but they don't need to know that. So it's giving the people a feel like home and not controlling everything they do and giving them love. You'll be surprised how far it goes that if you hug somebody and you know they're sad and you tell them, I get sad too, but we know we love you and we're going to take care of you. We'll figure it out together. It goes a long way. So it is a wonderful model. I would recommend it for every home if you can get the funding. And it's very based on emotion. So people living with dementia, they might not have that filter that, they see somebody and, they say, oh, you know what, your pants make you look fat. They're very honest. They have no filter. And but their emotions are right there. So you'll always know how they're feeling. And it's kind of changing our mentality of not trying to change that, but entering their reality and going with their feelings and finding out what's upsetting them if needed, and
Well,
finding how to make them happy.
and
Yeah.
that's excellent. You know, I think it's institutionalized is a very good way to put it. You know, it's a system of what was considered best fit, but it becomes almost dehumanizing. And I think it's
Mhm.
really excellent to see a kind of new approach that brings the autonomy back to the patients, that incorporates kind of emotional understanding and education, and also for the people listening. Like, you have to understand that this is a long-term care home. There are people around, there are people watching. It's not like Natalia is saying, oh, do whatever dangerous thing you want to do, but it's giving some freedom of choice and
Mhm.
freedom of expression through choice back to a relatively institutionalized, choiceless way
Yeah.
of living.
And that's a
Um,
big thing, giving people choice. So giving them choice on what to eat, what to do. Do they want to move? So even if they can't tell you, you will ask, can I move your wheelchair to the window? So then you're just like not plopping them somewhere. You're actually engaging with them. And engagement is very important. So talking to them, connecting with them, knowing their history is huge to be able to connect with them. So if they like gardening, if they like cars, being able to meet them in that reality and know where they are and connect with them on so many levels. Yeah, the institutions, they were very well cleaned, watered, and fed, but they were so unhappy. And so that's when you get to into behaviors and all these other labels. So
yeah.
we've come a long way. So it is a great way to change the system.
Well, I'm was absolutely riveted to read and watch some of the videos that you sent me. We will link a couple of those in the bio if you want to learn more about the butterfly approach, and learn more about kind of the science behind that. I got one more question for you, and I won't take up too much more of your time. Last but not least, do you have any advice to give families about long-term care homes and caregiving in general?
Yeah. So I know most people are in the community and kind of dealing with family members with dementia. Um, Education is a huge way to kind of feel like you have, more information and grounded to help your family member. There are definitely multiple types of dementia, and having a good diagnosis is a really good start because they all progress differently. So it's very important to get education. Go to your doctor, get a diagnosis if needed, neurologist, whoever you need to go to, and get a specific diagnosis. It does help to kind of prepare you of how things will progress and being prepared for things. So with a lot of dementias, they all think, oh, it's just their memory and that's it. There is a progression of how that dementia it attacks the brain and how it will progress and things that will get lost. So it is a lot of losses, and people do get very hung up on, oh, well, now they can't tie their shoes and now they can't go out on their own. And you focus on the losses, and yes, it is one loss after another. It is a horrible disease, but you have to find things that you still have. The person you love is still there, and finding ways to connect with them. Don't argue with them. You cannot argue, you cannot reason with them. You have to give them love, support, and agree with them. And, they might say something completely absurd, and you say, well, yeah, that's okay. And you validate what they say, and then you change the subject about something more positive. Knowing their history, you can connect with them about something they love, and you can change the subject about that. Some people with dementia regress to earlier times, so they might be looking for the little baby that they had, and that's okay. Maybe you get them a baby doll, and they can, take care of the baby. Maybe a pet they lost, so you can get them an electronic pet. There's a lot of things that you can do, and you can connect with them. And even if they don't remember your name, they might know that you make them happy. So you stick with a feeling. It's like, okay, you might think I'm your mother or somebody completely different, but they they have feelings. They're still there and they're all right on the surface. So it's very important to find and connect with that and find the positive and have those meaningful moments where you're both connecting and happy and kind of back to what things should be. So don't give up. There's a lot of help out there. And yes, long term care is kind of an option. It's not the only option, but for some people, it is the best option. And it's not giving up, it's not the end of the world. We are there to help you for whatever you need.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk to us, to give us a little bit of insight on the butterfly approach and Sunnyside Home and what you do. Very much appreciate you coming on this CLBDI Talks interview series, and we wish you guys all the best at Sunnyside. It's a wonderful place, and
Mhm.
we're very excited to hear about the butterfly approach and it being implemented in our region. And we hope that
Yeah.
it spreads.
Oh, and I have we just got updated that we have been accredited for the second year, and we once again got outstanding level one um, for our butterfly certification, which is a big deal because not a lot of homes in Ontario have that. So we're at the top of the top. So we're very proud.
Well, congratulations to everybody at Sunnyside, and thanks again for coming on. I appreciate it very much.
It's been a pleasure.
All
Thanks,
right.
Joe.
Take care. And everybody, thanks for listening.